Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke. I know this game is kind of old, and if you've listened to my podcast, you already know my thoughts, but I played and finished Star Ocean 4, or Star Ocean The Last Hope, whatever you want to call it, and I figured I should give a review on it, or my thoughts on it, whatever, just to kind of give my thoughts on it. Plus, I feel like I've kind of been neglecting Star Ocean, and I'll get to that later on. But yeah, I'm going to give my little review here. And like the Grace's final thought, I actually have notes on this one. The notes here being twice as long as before. So hopefully it'll be a pretty informative review. But yeah. And I'll go ahead and say that in the gameplay video, it's my file for when I beat the game. I, for whatever reason, didn't save clear date. I might have to go back and check, but this is the party that I ended up using at the end of the game, and I don't know, maybe you'll see me fight the final boss or something. I record these reviews, the actual review audio part first, and then the footage later, but the design I found kind of interesting because
amateurs throwing their lives away for nothing.
it's futuristic and it kind of looks robotic, like the way the characters dress, like with Raimi and Edge in particular. They look kind of robotic. I remember I showed my friend back in the day when this game was being worked on a picture of Raimi, and he said that she looked like a Barbie doll, which kind of true. This game also has motion capture, which is pretty nice, and you know, it's a nice little thing. I feel like they did it well. Graphically, I feel like this game is very nice. Granted, it's Square Enix nice, so it obviously could look better. And this is the first HD Star Ocean game, so obviously if they do another one, it would probably look better. I did notice some occasional blur. I played the PlayStation 3 version, so I actually had a better I prefer the PlayStation version. And for those who are wondering, I played it with the English voices, but I played it with the anime mugshots because I was more comfortable. Seeing as how I feel like this is sort of an RPG with anime art. And plus, that's generally how I see Star Ocean. You can switch. You can have dual audio, or it has dual audio, and you can switch between the two different art styles. And I did occasionally switch back to the CG just so I could see, but the battle system I felt like was more like Star Ocean 1 and 2, where I felt like it played more like I felt like they adapted the Star Ocean battle system into 3D nearly perfectly. It felt like, you know, what I expected Star Ocean to be. You know, I could go back to spamming moves again. Speaking of which, I'll get to that later, grab more. But the difficulty, I felt like this game wasn't really that hard. I mean, it was kind of... I played it on easy, so I could beat it in time for the podcast. And I was at the beginning, and it didn't even really take that long. There were some parts where the difficulty spiked up, but grinding generally took care of it. And, of course, with the grid thing, the battle grid, you can get experience modifiers to increase the amount of experience you get. But generally, the game wasn't really that hard. The Barakiel, he was pretty hard. I ended up beating with Edge solo because the rest of my crew died. The final boss was pretty hard. I feel like the bosses in general are pretty intimidating. What else? Welch's complete redesign I didn't really like, and I felt like it was almost like a different kind of character. I prefer her blonde pigtail design. I feel like they should have keep that. I mean, they could have had her be wearing the same thing and have the glasses, but it's really the hair. Like, if they had her dress that same way, I would have been fine with it. I personally like her Star Ocean 2 design the best because, you know, the white shirt, but fetish. The private actions I thought were interesting, and I liked how they were set up because you could only do them on the Calnus, the ship, and I liked it because it was sort of like downtime. Some of the ones that I liked were, you know, Phase, Training, and Secret. Of course, the Raimi's birthday one, which, yeah, that's a thing. And then there was the one where Phase tried to put his hand in Limmel's, or a.k.a. K-Girl's, Cerberus's mouth. And then there was the thing of Raimi beating Edge at a chess game after Edge getting really good at chess while playing Bacchus. But One thing that makes this one unique to the other Star Ocean games is that it brought in actual time travel. And for those who don't know, with Star Ocean, the way time travel generally works, it's more of like just the way I see it, it's more like just a way of doing time travel. But like each planet has like its own like time frame. Like different planets have different developments, so it's almost like you're going back in time without actually going through time. And they go back in time. It's a big thing, and Edge gets upset. I can kind of understand why he would get upset, because that planet gets destroyed, and he felt like he lent it their technology to it. This, being a prequel, takes place before they have the Space Preservation Act in place. And I can understand why Edge would be kind of upset, because I felt like he could have saved it, and not only that, but he also had a hand in causing the destruction. So it was almost like a blow to his pride. I know a lot of people weren't really on board with his emo, and of course, I don't really like emo characters. I mean, he definitely did a good job with the voice. I feel like the voice acting in this game was decent. Matthew Mercer, who plays Edge, I think he did a good job with this one, because you're probably used to hearing him as like Alvin and Kiritsugu and whatnot, but he did pretty good in this one. The whole thing with Edge and FaZe was also pretty interesting. I felt like they had a good dynamic. Edge in general, he's probably one of my favorite characters. There was a moment where I thought I was gonna like, the ending almost ruined it for me, but it all worked out. I find him interesting because of he wants to be big, he wants to be a captain, and of course he becomes like a captain just on the grounds that there is no other captain. He's appointed captain. His best friend, Crow, is also like his rival. He wants to be like Crow. And I feel like this kind of comes into play with the whole alternate dimension Earth when they go back in time, because I feel like it hurts his pride, because he's saying like, if I can't save a fake planet, how can I even begin to save a real planet? That was my mentality, and you feel like he wasn't good enough to be captain, so I can kind of understand where he's coming from. But I find the relationship between FaZe and Edge to be pretty interesting. They definitely have different views on things, and it starts to kind of come out more when they start to argue. They foreshadow it when they get into a big fight when they're with Elena's place and on Roke. Kind of shows that they sort of see the world a little differently. And FaZe ends up being a pretty important character. It kind of goes back to Tails when you think about it, but what else? Oh, Edge and FaZe. I feel like Edge kind of gets what he wants in the end, especially rising up to ranks pretty at the end of the game. When you get to the final boss, it's revealed that FaZe is actually the final boss and the bad guy, because he goes up. FaZe prefers to go ahead and act, but the problem is, like, he does it kind of irrationally. Like, he doesn't really have a plan. He just goes in there, and of course, when I do my East Memories of Celceta review, it's gonna kind of counteract things. But basically, with FaZe, he doesn't really think things through. He's more about just going in there. He doesn't really have, or I guess the implication with FaZe as opposed to Karna, I know I'm talking about two different series. With FaZe, he just doesn't do it. He's kind of like, he's very much like a Tails villain. He has good intentions, but he's just going about it the wrong way. And, beat the bad guy, and Edge wants to save FaZe. And here he admits that, he looked up to Edge, and he wanted to be strong like Edge, which I feel like it kind of puts Edge at a higher light, because, Edge wanted to be like Crow, and so in Edge's mind, Crow was like this higher thing that was bigger than him, and he wanted to be like Crow. Well, now here is FaZe saying, "Oh, I wanted to be like you, Edge." So in my opinion, that kind of puts Edge like on the same level as Crow, because he has You know, he has a Kohai. FaZe looks up to his senpai, Edge. I feel like that puts Edge at a high... So at that point, Edge is kind of... I think Edge realized it at that point, or he may have, or I don't know. But I feel like at that point, Edge had achieved his goals. Now, he tries to rescue FaZe, but of course, you know, the castle, like, space place they're in starts to collapse, and they have to get out of there early or else they're going to die. And FaZe trips... Edge grabs his hand and like tries to hold on to him, and FaZe is like, "No, I'm gonna die," and so he lets go and he falls. And then Edge gets upset, and he falls too. He's like, "I'm gonna kill myself," and that almost made me hate the character because I felt like he was throwing away all of that development that he had built up. You know, that whole fact that, like, it almost took away his whole "I'm like Crow" mentality that I think he had, and that I think he may have noticed, but. It almost made me dislike the character, and then of course, you know, it turns out he survived. He was saved by the light, and then afterward you get a scene where he kind of talks about the what's it called? I have it in my notes. The Planet Preservation Act, I believe. Yeah, the Planet Preservation Act. That's and that's where that whole thing starts. So that's where we kind of get that whole thing. And at this point near the game, I started to notice some lip syncing issues. I mean, this being a Japanese game has dubbing, so. Though with video games, they have a little bit more lenient. They're not dubbing to something, so they don't have to time it. They actually can move around. So that's I think that's part of the reason why Advent Children, for example, took a while, because they were having to dub stuff, or they were having to fix like a CGI movie, which probably takes a little bit more work than doing a game, because a game isn't pre-rendered. From what I can, it at least doesn't look pre-rendered. The music in this game I thought was it had its moments. I didn't really find it all that interesting. It's a, you know, standard Motoi Sakuraba fare. I feel like he, in terms of fans of his, he's more known for his Star Ocean music than in Tales. But yeah, I felt like this game was pretty interesting. There are multiple endings, and you know, I got Lemmel's, Bacchus's, Sarah's, Mura's, and Raimi's. So I didn't get everybody, but I got a fair amount of people. And what I kind of liked about this game, yet at the same time I kind of don't, was that they give you all the characters. Minus FaZe, you actually lose FaZe, but you get Aramat, who can learn Dragon Roar, which it's more like the way it is in a Star Ocean 3, where it's not just like a beast thing going on. It's not naturally learned, for one thing. You have to teach it through a skill book, which is a post-game thing. You like, or not the skill book learning thing, but like the specific skill book is in a post-game dungeon. So you have to beat the game, and I think I understand why, because it's like a mix of Star Ocean 1 and 2's Dragon Roar and Star Ocean 3's Dragon Roar, so it's like extremely OP. And this game added in like setting 3 skills to your buttons, so you can just spam attacks over and over if you keep pressing the button. If you switch to the other button, you can spam even longer, which is what I did. I just spammed Aura Spark. That was basically my Dragon Roar. But yeah, I found this game pretty interesting. This one's probably my second or third favorite. That's really all I can think of to say, besides there are action figures, and I plan to get Edge pretty soon. But I'd recommend it if you just want to play one Star Ocean game and you don't want to play like a handheld or Star Ocean 3. And, you know, I initially thought that the reason why this was the last one was because it didn't sell very well, and that may also be part of it. But I also think that it's the last one because it was designed to sort of be like to wrap up everything, to be like they wanted to go out with a bang. And I think they, not like a giant bang, but like a little bang, or maybe even a medium to small bang. That's how I rate my bangs. And according to Game Trailer, Star Ocean: The Last Hope has the best action-oriented JRPG battle system. I think that's probably due to blindsiding and the big moves you can do in groups. Blindsiding is pretty useful. There's one boss in particular where you have to use blindsiding or else you will not win. And, you know, I didn't use blindside for the longest time, and then finally I started using blindside, and I just crushed him after grinding a little bit. I had to grind, but grinding didn't really take that long. You know, it wasn't really that big a deal, but yeah, that's really all I can think of to say on this game. I enjoyed it, personally, and I think it's a decent game to end off at. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, I feel like I didn't really talk too much about the Star Ocean series. If you remember, I did my thoughts on Star Ocean when I was doing, like, big, like, I'm going to talk about all the series I like, but I didn't really, I don't even remember at the time if I had played any besides maybe Star Ocean, a little bit of Star Ocean 1, and a little bit of Star Ocean 3. With here, I finished Star Ocean 1, 2, and 4. I'm still working on 3. So I think I'm going to do reviews on the others. Obviously 1 and 2 after I, not 1 and 2 since I've already done those, and 3 after I beat it. I don't remember too much about Star Ocean 1 and 2, but I think playing it will rekindle, will remind me on certain things, and you know, I have a good PSP emulator that can let me record stuff, so I'll probably just use that, so it'll be a nice crisp HD, not HG. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little review of Star Ocean: The Last Hope. This is Flames Around, aka YouTube Tasuke, signing out. See you later.